And we said that we'll start. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar about procurement during the pandemic. My name is Christophe Herbeau, and I'm the CEO and founder of Dela. I'll chair the session today, very simply. Just a couple of things maybe to note before we start. We will encourage you to ask questions. We have dedicated the last 15 minutes of the webinar for the Q&A session. You can ask a question at any time using the chat window on the right-hand side. I will try to keep a track of that and answer those questions at the end. So I'm joined in this session by Eleanor White from Shearman & Sterling, Natasha Maddock from GBG, and Natalie Millman from Vilex. So maybe before we start, we'll all introduce ourselves. Eleanor, do you mind starting?
Hi, hello everybody. I'm Eleanor White, Manager of Legal Technology and Innovation at Shearman & Sterling. So I'll be talking mainly from the law firm perspective.
Thank you, Eleanor. Natasha, go ahead.
Christophe, great. So I'm Natasha Maddock. I'm head of legal at GBG. We're a technology and data company, and my responsibility is really for looking after the in-house legal team. So I'll be talking from the perspective of the in-house buyer when it comes to procurement of technology.
Great. Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie Millman. I'm the head of business development at Vilex Global Markets. Vilex is a case law database, but we have a number of AI tools to help legal professionals find other relevant authorities whilst they are doing their case law research. So I'll be speaking from the vendor's perspective.
Great, thank you. And so on my side, as I mentioned, I'm the CEO of Dela. Dela is a new kind of contract analysis platform, and we're helping law firm and legal department reviewing contract faster. Today, Dela is used by legal department and law firm, large and small, across Europe. And a big part of our success is due to multilingual capabilities and ease of use, with small team becoming proficient very quickly. And it has posed some interesting challenges, during the pandemic as procurement process for us. Sometimes we've been targeting very big global law firms, some other small European law firms or legal departments. So very different sizes and very different processes from a procurement standpoint. So I will provide also my views on that. So with that, the theme of the webinar is about procurement during the pandemic. And last year, obviously, everything has changed for everybody. As soon as the lockdown started, we had to change how we operated. And that's true for every industry, but, especially for legal tech, with a lot of people who didn't like tech that much. And so we'll be looking during this webinar, discussing what has changed during the pandemic and what it maybe is going to continue, and how, the whole process of selling product has been impacted. And so let's just start. I don't know who would like to start and maybe discuss what has changed and, maybe starting back in last year, what was the biggest impact?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite unanticipated year, so many changes. I think from the point of view of certainly our firm, the process for procurement hasn't changed an awful lot. In terms of legal technology, there's been such a focus on that. We've been gearing all of our processes towards understanding, streamlining, and making the legal tech procurement process as simple and as secure as possible. So we were kind of ready for it, although we didn't expect it to happen at the speed it did. So getting everybody on board was an interesting challenge. I think certainly where it's going, obviously, I think everybody will agree with this. I don't think there's any kind of return to how it was previously. I think we'll continue to move forward in terms of remote working, collaborating in the cloud, and moving forward in that way.
And I guess we're quite similar to Eleanor, actually. We've been doing a huge amount of work on legal technology and innovation pre-pandemic. We introduced a sort of case management system about 6 or 7 years ago, using some basic tools, which we've been using. But over the last couple of years, we've been looking at, okay, how could we upgrade that? What could we do differently? Probably the key change for me during the pandemic was that we sort of had to put on hold some of that procurement process because we saw such an increase in the volume of work coming through to our team. It's about 200% increase in the first quarter of the year, which we just had not anticipated. Thankfully, we already had some legal tech in place that we were able to use to deliver on those results. And it has helped us. I think probably the key difference I noticed was that we had people who were a little bit less keen to adopt technology. Our business, I think, still wanted lawyers to be in the office. We did use and have used e-signature tools for quite some time within the business. But suddenly people who perhaps weren't going down that route before were like, that's the only way I'm going to get my contract signed right now. So they had to adopt technology a little bit quicker than perhaps they would have otherwise done. And actually what it's meant for us is we've been able to show the value in that technology and in having our teams working remotely. And I think that's going to help me invest in more technology and upgrading some of our technology in the next 12 months. So I think what's been really great is that we've been able to prove that business case just because of necessity. We've had to, everyone's got to adjust to this new way of working online. And I think that's been, for some, a bit of a shock and a bit of a change. For others who are looking forward to doing a bit more from a technology perspective anyway, it's been quite a welcome change. And I know a lot of my team have enjoyed the opportunity to work more remotely and from home rather than having to travel into the office so often. So I don't know if anyone else feels the same way and whether the ability to kind of work where and when you want is something that's been a benefit of having that sort of technology that you can connect to wherever you happen to be.
Yeah, I think so. I think it certainly helps with a shift in attitude. So you're absolutely right. I'd love to pick up on that point. I think in terms of adoption and trying to get users to adopt new technology or technology that could really help them, we've always been innovating. We've always been implementing legal technology. But I think the shift in attitude has been significant, and now because of necessity, people have to. And even if they don't have to, I think the way they're thinking about it has certainly changed. They're more receptive to a different way of working, and I think that remote working has certainly been beneficial in that respect. But yeah, I'd love to hear the vendor side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from our perspective, the start of the pandemic was really tough. There was such a shift towards panic and uncertainty of how is this going to affect our finances moving forward. Are we in a position to start investing in new resources that we hadn't done so previously? Whereas as we've shifted throughout the year, there has been a huge shift in the attitudes that we're experiencing from law firms, where there's this idea that they need to start streamlining their resources, finding ways to amalgamate their resources so that fee earners aren't having to go on multiple different services to try and access the resources that they need. And that's provided such a big opportunity for VLEX, and that's something that we can provide through our connection technology that we offer.
Yeah, on our side, I mean, I agree with Natalie. I mean, it's been extremely challenging at the beginning, and remote working is extremely efficient for a lot of things, but you need to know who you need to speak to be able to make it work. And as a vendors, especially as a growing and fast growing vendors, it's sometimes it's challenging. And then and there is this challenge of how then to use digital means to identify who you should be speaking to. And I think we have seen a huge amount, at least on our side, increase of the usage of LinkedIn as a way to be able to identify the right person to speak to, etc. But I could see very easily as well how some company could move into almost a spamming mode in terms of just trying to reach anyone that might be able to answer some things to try to get in the door. Where I feel like when before you knew that if you got a meeting, you were going to meet multiple persons. You could rely on word of mouth and different things to be able to make your nest and grow your business. It's a lot more challenging. And at least on our side, we've been trying to find the fine line in terms of targeting the right person, trying to find the gatekeeper, like and law firm that has put in place legal innovation team made it easier in some ways for us to identify the right person to talk to. Law firm who have not, it's a lot more complicated. And you have to look for the partners, you have to look for and identify the right person who may be interesting to speak with. So that has been a huge challenge for us. I think we found the right solution long term, but and I don't know how this will change long term in some ways. Will we go back to having word of mouth and we're meeting people in person, or are we going to stick to being remote 90% of the time? I have no idea, and I don't know how this is going to unfold. I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
It's quite an interesting one, because from a kind of buyer perspective, it's also quite difficult to find a vendor if you haven't got the sort of conferences and events that you can go to where you can actually look at technology providers. So I was fortunate enough to have attended quite a lot of conferences and events that were hosted in the years before the pandemic, where there are people there with stalls. You can go and have a look and have a demo of the products and see what's available, and then follow up with kind of video conferencing and demos remotely after that. But actually it can be quite difficult to kind of weed out. If you're getting a lot of LinkedIn messages from people saying, I've got some tech that can help you, how do you know which tech provider is going to be the solution that you need? And I think you might want to innovate, you might know you need to innovate, but for me, it's about really understanding what is it you want to achieve? Where is that pain point for your organization, whether you're a law firm or an in-house team? You need to think about what is it that you're spending a lot of time doing in a way that's really inefficient, that could be automated in a better way, but actually plotting out that process first. So put the process in and think, if it was an ideal world, how would I want this to operate, and could technology help me in that journey? Start to kind of figure out, what do you want to achieve? How could you do that? And then speak to some vendors and see which technology fits best with the sort of solution that you're looking to create for your business. So it is a little bit challenging, I think, for somebody who's buying technology, when there's this huge range of different companies out there that could help them. Where do you start and what do you pick? I don't know, Eleanor, did you find that when you were sort of starting to look at vendors, particularly as part of your process?
Yeah, I think that's definitely an issue. Yeah, I absolutely miss the stalls, because being able to go in and have a chat and discover something that you didn't know was out there. But yeah, the team at Sherman has been built over the last around 3 years with exactly that in mind. And I think that's a crucial point. It's looking at the need. You have to look at the need first, rather than just implementing for the sake of it. And whereas it's good on one hand to have that approach where you have vendors saying, I've got this thing, and you think, oh, that's amazing, let's take a look at that. But really, you've got to make sure that you're going right back to the beginning. We do the same. We speak very closely with our practice groups and lawyers. It's crucial that we understand how they're working and what their daily pain points were, and are. Had a great call today, actually, and we seem to see the same things coming up, the same areas for development. So definitely the days out were really useful in terms of seeing those in-person webinars, those real life demonstrations, and talks to understand how we can start to address those pain points. And certainly going back to the procurement process as a whole, the team is there to be that go-between. So we're understanding the pain points and where we need to add value within the firm, and we're fully assessing everything that's out there. So what we like to do is talk to everybody, is to understand the marketplace fully, and see what is available and what's the best fit, because we find that so many different products have different elements. A lot of them are common elements, but it's really finding that right fit for the firm. And we've really streamlined that process over the last 3-4 years to make sure that we're securely onboarding, we're getting the right fit, we're getting those products in front of the right people at the firm. So in answer to your point, Christoph, it's a great point. Not knowing where to go to, I can imagine it's a minefield. Not knowing who to approach. But certainly from our point of view, it's really crucial that we get the right tech in front of the right people. And I think innovation teams are helping in that respect. You can identify that legal tech and innovation in the title of someone's job and go from there. So I hope that starts to help.
I mean, both you and Natasha raise a very good point, is that, you to even start a procurement process successfully, you need to know what you need to buy. And so has it been easier in some ways to gather the need of your colleague in a pandemic situation where you can't just, walk in and ask them or have a chat in the elevators or at lunch, and where you are, you have to formalize, I'm guessing, the process of collecting feedback, collecting information about their need? Like how has this changed in some ways for you? And is it more efficient now, or are you missing seeing your colleagues?
Yeah, it's definitely harder not being able to walk into an office and say, hi, what's going on? How can I help? But as a global law firm, what's been quite interesting is that I found that I was doing probably 80% of my job remotely anyway. So I was talking to vendors on the West Coast and then speaking to our teams in Singapore and understanding their needs and requirements and going from there. However, that said, in the pandemic, being fully remote, I think that we're slightly more, I certainly feel slightly more efficient. I can fit more hours into the day because instead of walking from a meeting room to meeting room, I'm now on back-to-back webinars and calls, so it cuts down the time in between. Not sure if that's healthy, but it's it's made us more efficient. But that's one kind of change. I think the approach is slightly different, but in terms of who we're interacting with and how we're doing it, we had to be remote anyway. And that's absolutely right. We're having to speak to our teams and make absolutely sure that we're keeping in good contact with them without pestering them, to understand what's going on. So we set up well, actually, we did it in person. First of all, we set up Sherman Innovate, which the concept was to have all of our vendors and legal tech partners in the same room, running a series of TED Talks over the course of the day and having stalls at the side, so our lawyers could drop by and have a chat and see what might fit some of their requirements face to face. Then when the pandemic hit, that was a definite shift. We took that fully remote, got that all online and set up webinars. So in putting that together, we've needed to speak more closely with our legal team, to understand their needs and requirements. Just even in terms of what to present to them and how to support them there, a lot has come out of that, and we've had some really great discussions which have led to further requirements for legal technology that we're now looking to onboard.
And sort of similar to what you were saying, Eleanor, actually having an international team, which I do, one of the things that we found pre-pandemic was that we probably were a bit UK-centric. A lot of us are based in the UK. We were largely based out of one of our offices. And so we would have more of those informal conversations. We could hear things, people's frustrations going on in the office, and you would pick up on that. But actually what we were missing was the perspective of our team members who weren't based in the UK, that were in Malaysia or the US. And actually, because now we've all had to work remotely, it's leveled the playing field somewhat, and that we now arrange our team meetings either first thing in the morning or later on in the afternoon, so that we can have our team members internationally join us. And before, for them, it was a bit difficult because they were the only one on screen. The rest of us would be potentially in a meeting room. But now we're all on screen and everyone's on that equal footing. So when you're getting feedback from people, I think it's quite important, as we go back into working in our offices, that if you are within a law firm or within a legal department in a business and you are thinking about legal technology, is being really inclusive in getting that feedback first. So when you start thinking about where could I invest and what technology might help me, start thinking about those processes. What works well and what do you feel that you are really successful at? Where do you think it's just difficult or doesn't work, and start to sort of identify those areas. Then think about that process. Is that something we can just improve with a new manual process, but that's streamlined, or would technology really help us? And that's when it's great to then start to speak to some providers. So get a sort of feel for the areas you want to do, and you can start to narrow down, okay, we need a tech provider that could do this and this. But keep your mind open, because actually what you'll find is some tech providers provide multiple solutions that can help across several different areas, and that you could implement a single module and then extend it out. There's some elements of things that you perhaps didn't know you needed. Natalie talked about some AI technology that her company provides. And I hadn't realised AI technology could really help us until I went to a roadshow and spoke to somebody, and I was like, oh, that might help us review our contracts more quickly. And oh, could we use that in a way to really increase the consistency across our different departments, regardless of time zone and location? And so there are these sorts of things that crop up as part of those discussions that you can then take back to your team and say, okay, like you did, Eleanor, that there's a beauty parade. Here's a variety of different solutions that might help us. Which ones are you drawn to? How do you think it might help and improves the quality of your working day? And then you can go from there. So I don't know, Natalie, is that something you've done with some of your customers? Have you had those opportunities to go and talk to their teams and see their pain points and really figure out how your solution can help them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are two sort of branches to what our product offers. It's a way to streamline your process with researching, and then on top of that, having a wide library of materials there. So absolutely, I think with working remotely, I mean, even before the pandemic, all law firms were trying to get their content digitized to make sure that it's available to the wider firm. But it's become even more needed once the pandemic's hit. So absolutely, we're having our clients come to us and be like, right, we've needed this content sporadically. This was in our library. We now need it digitized because we aren't able to physically go to our library anymore. So we're having those conversations with our accounts to figure out, right, okay, what had it been prioritized pre-pandemic? Because you could have maybe have gotten away with not working that much towards trying to digitize this content previously, whereas since the pandemic hit, there's been a far more detailed discussion with our accounts, thinking about how can we try and make all of this online and all of this streamlined so that you're not having to go for multiple different sources here.
And Natalie, beyond this, like, is there some other lesson learned or improvement that you'd be willing to share, how you improve your procurement process and your selling process during the pandemic? What worked well?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you were saying that sales teams went into a mode of panic at the start of the pandemic. Not being able to contact our clients in the office. You have to be more creative. So we have utilized LinkedIn to the best of our ability. I feel like having LinkedIn there, firstly, to be able to establish who is the right person to speak to. Like you mentioned, Christoph, the worst thing that you can do when there is a global crisis is go into panic mode and try and contact anyone and everyone within a law firm. I mean, those structures are in place regardless of if you're working from home or if you're in an office. There is one or two people that you need to contact. So making sure that A, you're contacting the right person, and B, making sure that the mode in which you're contacting them on is appropriate for working from home, be it by LinkedIn, but be it by email, and researching what that organization does and realizing what their particular pain point could be and structuring how you present your product based on that. So I think researching around that organization to realize, hey, how could our technology actually help you versus this is just a spam email of anything and everything we do, and I hope that something in there sticks. That's definitely something that we've been very mindful of over the past year.
Please do that, because it makes such a difference to us. I've seen procurement pitches from people and they've gone, here's all the stuff that we can do, and I'm like, yeah, but I asked you for this bit and you've spent 10 minutes on that bit and 50 minutes on a whole bunch of other stuff that we don't need just yet. So having that procurement process really tailored to what your buyer is likely to need makes such a difference for us, because if we've gone through that process as a buyer of figuring out what we think our team might need and what might be a good starting point, it's a good entry point to technology. Actually going in there and trying to innovate across a whole range of stuff means that you're likely to be unsuccessful, because you can bite off too much and struggle to actually implement and deliver it. Whereas if you can start with a vendor and think, okay, what's that pain point I can do first? Tackle that, look at how you can implement that and ensure that you're delivering value for your team so they've bought into that process. If one bit's working, you can then extend it out to other areas of the product offering that might be available to you and expand from there. But you've proved that it can work. And I think as well as a buyer, whether you're in-house or in a law firm, there's a cost to incurring when you bring in technology, not just in the cost of the technology to license, but also in the investment in the time to actually implement and roll out that technology, which can be a huge investment, and you want to get it right. So, and you've got to try and also sell that to somebody else who's going to make the decision probably on how much money to spend on it. So yeah, definitely if vendors can really tailor their pitch and help the buyer generate that business case for, look, this is the problem that you're trying to solve, this is how our solution will help you get there, and this is how it'll deliver a return on investment for you. I'm sure for law firms, being able to get your hand on a precedent really quickly and being able to get that information and deliver really valuable advice to your clients quickly and easily is going to make a huge difference to your bottom line, because you're saving, what would take a lawyer a couple of hours down to something like a 30-minute job. And if you're able to get your hands on the right information and deliver results, then of course there's a benefit there. But actually, as vendors, you guys can help us make that business case internally by sharing other clients' experiences and talking us through that ROI process. I don't know, Christoph, is that something that you found as well, that particularly the sort of buyers in your department have felt they needed or would be useful to them?
Yeah, so actually it resonated more for me for when I talk to law firms who have a very small innovation team. So if on my head, in my side, I have three scenarios. There is a global law firm with a well-structured innovation team, which are usually wonderful to work with, to be honest, as a vendor. Then you have, European law firm who sometimes there is no innovation team, and then you sell to the partner, which is, it's not necessarily great, but it can go very quickly as well, because, the decision process can be simple. And then in the middle, sometimes you have innovation teams that are really understaffed, and they are trying to control everything. They are gatekeeper, and they haven't even done it. They haven't. And so even going through the work of building a business case, like something we've done recently was helping one of those firms looking at the timesheet, of multiple M&A projects and going back, okay, you have done that amount of write-off on that M&A project. An AI technology would have helped you save, that amount of time, which actually, you probably wouldn't have made a write-off. But the team, if we hadn't come with a suggestion to do that, they would not even have looked at this data to try to justify the buying of the technology. And as a vendor, we were able to say, yes, we have done that with other, law firm. We are more than happy to help you doing that. And yes, as you mentioned, doing that work is extremely helpful to create a ROI. And Natalie, maybe you have some other example as well.
Sorry, of business cases. Sorry, I missed that. Apologies. Oh.
And now I'm the one on mute. I was saying maybe you have some other example of business cases or helping the clients building business cases. But at least on our hand, and I don't know if that would have been the case pre-pandemic, but I feel like we had to go the extra mile every time we could.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think particularly, when working with larger law firms, there are so many subscriptions that are part of everyone's day-to-day. So the business cases that we use are things about how We can help improve the usage. I think usage, particularly during the pandemic, more than ever. I mean, usage for your devices, your subscriptions has always been a high priority, but even more so during the pandemic when procurement are trying to streamline what it is that they do subscribe to. Us being able to provide a business case to say, look, what we're able to do through our product is to increase the usage on these other subscriptions that you do need as part of your day-to-day. We're finding that, with our competitors, we can increase the usage that are based on that. And what's more, with us, the amount of time that we're finding lawyers spend doing their primary law research is decreasing by having the technology that we're implementing. It's a double-edged sword to say, look, this is what we've been able to do for other providers, and it's a far more convincing argument when we are in the pandemic, and the thought process behind this is perhaps even more prominent than it had been previously.
I think that tailored approach is really useful, certainly for us. I think if you can go to a law firm, if the vendor is saying, we've seen success in these areas, how about you think about maybe approaching it like this? Obviously, we get requirements from our users and we can feed those back. But when vendors approach and say we can help you, having that very specific use case is really helpful. And I found that just suggesting maybe take a smaller data set or a particular pain point in part of the process that you're trying to make more efficient. I think that really helps, and you really get the user to understand the value of that product when you do that. And from there, it's adoption. It's if you've got that successful proof of value, it's then a case of expanding that through the firm and again say, look, we've had a great use case here. Why not take it further? This might help you. This is a great way to approach it. And we've seen the opposite, where to go back to a previous point, we've seen the opposite where we've had approaches for products that are entirely relevant to the firm, and it just doesn't help. So I think that real I think you're right, Natalie, the research that goes into who you're approaching and how you're approaching them, I think is key, and I think it's certainly more successful than just firing out emails to anybody and everybody hoping somebody will listen. But I think certainly that thoughtful, tailored approach to a proof of value and coming with that suggestion in the first place is a really good one.
For Eleanor and Natasha, how have you both been finding how has the pandemic affected the length of time it takes to adopt new products? Are you finding that it's been sped up over the last 12 months, or has it not changed at all? What have been your experiences?
A bit of both. It's been really interesting because we saw with quite specific products, and I won't name names, but we've seen that some have everybody's kind of gone into a similar panic and gone, we need that. And then actually when you look at the adoption and you look at the numbers, it doesn't necessarily match the level of uptake. So are people actually using it? We've had similar challenges in still trying to promote adoption. And I think there are certainly products and platforms that we have that many users really understand the value and they had beforehand. It helps because when you're working remotely and you're trying to work collaboratively, certainly that has helped with adoption in some respects. But it's not a given that the pandemic has automatically just catapulted adoption in all areas. In some, yeah, absolutely, but not in all areas. I don't know if you've had a similar experience, Natasha.
Very, very similar. So there are certain bits of technology that we've had to adapt to, video calling being one of those clear things that when we first got sent home, and we actually within about 24 hours, our entire business went to working remotely. Now, we're fortunate being a tech and data business anyway. A lot of our team members are working remotely already. We had all of the technology to be able to do that. And I tend to joke that I had my laptop, I had my phone, I could work from home, but actually I now have my double screen setup. I've got my video camera. I'm properly set up to work from home now. So there was sort of that initial panic of like everyone work from home, right? We need to get onto being able to do video calls and things. And so there was quite a lot of different technology. Again, you're probably aware there's various different providers that offer that technology, and different teams had different preferences, and we're using different bits and pieces. And actually, what we've done over the last 12 months is realize that why don't we just try and work with one provider across the company so that we're all using the same technology for meeting booking, for video conferencing, for collaboration tools. So we're sort of streamlining that across all the different departments and across everybody else. So there was that mad panic. Then it was like, okay, what are we going to use? When it came for more specialist procurement processes, the business, everyone going into the pandemic just didn't know how it was going to affect their revenue, whether we would suddenly see everybody's profits really, really struggling. And you know, there was times where our exec are then going, right, how do we model it if we're going to see a reduction in the number of sales, the number of customers, etc., coming through to us? And so we didn't have any money to spend. So I've been having these kind of legal plans of all of the technology I wanted to adopt in 2020, and I wasn't allowed to spend any money for the first half of 2020 because we were like, no more recruitment, no more buying unnecessary tools that might help us. And then every single business case was really scrutinized during that time. So we have bought technology, we have implemented things. We've been a lot more cautious about what it was that we were implementing. And, you know, it's given us that time to really assess what's worked well for us. Within my own legal matter management, we've been using a Jira IT service desk, which I got built for me 6 years ago because there wasn't really an appropriate legal technology at the time. And it's clunky, it's based on what was already being used within the business, but it does the job. And it's given me the ability to actually track metrics, to look at how many cases we've got, how long we're spending on things. And all of that MI and information really then helps us make more informed buying decisions in the future. So yeah, there's a bit of both. It was like some really quick adoption, we need something fast. Then it was more around, okay, how can we streamline and pick the right technology for the business? And I think long term, it will help us make much better buying decisions because we're thinking strategically about what's going to support the growth of our organisation. And actually, as a provider of services to other companies, we've seen a lot of our customers follow a very similar process. We've had a lot more legal queries come through to my team because customers are asking more questions and being a little bit more discerning about what they're buying. So I don't know whether Christoph and Natalie, you've noticed that with people, that there's just that little bit more caution around spending money and wanting to be really certain that what they were buying is going to add that value.
Yes, I mean, certainly. I mean, it's complicated, right? Because on our side, we're an AI, contract analytics platform, so we help people save time, but we are helping people save time who don't have any time. They usually don't even have time to look at our solution, to be honest, if they don't have an innovation team. So it can be quite challenging, and so it's not even sometimes it is budget. But I think it's also just time, a lot of people need to be, I think when you're working remotely, it's much easier to start getting sidetracked as well, but not just your day-to-day work, but by all of those vendors who might want to help you do your job better. And you need to be able to put them on the side, otherwise you get distracted. And in some ways, that's on the vendor to develop a good relationship with people, to get to know them. It's impressive the number of people I've get to know, even though I've never met them in person. And I feel like I know them better than clients I've met in person before pre-pandemic. But it's certainly the case where people want to pick the right technology, and they are realizing as well that, and that's what you were mentioning at the beginning, Natasha, is before. A lot of legal tech company or tech company in general would be very happy to sell piecemeal to every part of the business. And businesses knows that that's not viable long term. That's much harder to support in a remote environment. And they need to pick solutions that are going to work for everyone. I mean, now on our side, we sell to very specific team, like lawyers or legal counsel. So it's not that a challenge, but I could see that could be a challenge for many firms. Natalie, I don't know if you have something to add here.
Yes, sorry, my internet went slightly there, so I only caught the first part of what you were mentioning, but I completely agree. There has been definitely a lot more caution that I've experienced over the last 12 months. particularly in the first portion of the year. Like you said, Natasha, there are other priorities needed by law firms that you just needed immediately. We need to make sure that your video conferencing is up to scratch. You need to make sure, I know Eleanor, when we had our meeting before this main event, talking about DocuSign, making sure that all of those fundamentals are there that make sure that you can do your day-to-day, that other technologies took a back burner, at least initially. I'd say in the last 6 months, there is more of an openness for the other kind of technologies that are coming out, that are within the market. But definitely thinking about it from a slightly different angle about, right, this technology could be useful, but how useful will it be whilst we're working remotely? Will it be, is it going to be adopted well without us being able to have training sessions in the house? Can we do the training sessions remotely and make sure that this is going to be adopted by everybody in the that we need it to be in the organization? So yeah, no, absolutely, we're seeing a lot more caution, but then also on the flip side of that, more of an openness as well to think about how can we get these processes done in a remote environment well and efficiently.
So we have 5 minutes left before the question, and sorry, I was wondering maybe if we could talk a bit about what do we think is going to continue in some way, or what do we want to see continue in something that was new with the pandemic and we would like or we think is going to continue in the future. I would love to hear your views on that, just to see.
Well, I think oh, sorry, go ahead, Natasha.
I was going to say remote working. I think that probably even once we start to return to offices, and some people already have started returning to offices, my company hasn't yet, but even when we do, we did some surveys across our 1,000+ team members, and our people team looked into, do people want to return to the office full-time? Do they want to stay working from home full-time, or do they want some kind of hybrid working model? And pretty much most people said hybrid working model. They want to work a few days of the week from home and a few days a week from the office. So I think that the trend for having technology that can connect us regardless of whether we're at home or in the office, I think is going to be really, really critical going forward, because we've seen the benefit of being able to avoid that travel time and actually have conversations more easily with people in different locations, because everybody's doing that on their sort of remote video call. So that would be my prediction, is that we're going to see this hybrid model come forward where you've got a bit of home working, a bit of office working, and the technology that we've got has to do both and has to work in both scenarios, as you were sort of alluding to earlier, Natalie.
I think collaboration, certainly I think there's been a greater focus on collaboration, remote collaboration, and I think that that is going to continue. I know this has come up a couple of times, but what I really liked as a result of working remotely was getting to know our global teams much better. So in the office I would have my laptop closed, I'd never have my video on. It was unheard of pre-pandemic. And now I feel like I know our global offices much better. I've actually seen them. I feel like I'm actually interacting with them in person. So that has really helped across the board. So that and collaborative platforms, I think people are understanding the power of that, where they were not necessarily, or they were starting to increase in popularity. I think people are really understanding. Again, it goes back to the shift in acceptance and adoption, in attitudes for adoption. I think we're going to see that continue, and I think that's a pretty powerful thing.
I think from the vendor side, like you mentioned previously, Christoph, it's actually been really, I feel like working from home has been a really lovely way to connect with your clients. There's definitely a feeling of being more relaxed in your own home. And it makes that bonding process and the sales process such a lovely experience. I feel like, again, I know I mentioned before, I used to have so many times my cats jumped on my laptop, and it's just a way that you don't get that kind of interaction when you are in a corporate setting and we're all in our best dress. And it's just that's something that I've really enjoyed during the pandemic, is having that video interaction when we are when we are at home. So I'm quite happy for that to continue as we move forward with a hybrid model.
Yeah, I mean, At least I just hope that the kids will be at school, because I did have kids on the back going up and down the climbing wall during a call, which was a bit stressful. Yeah, no, but I agree with you. I mean, I think I mentioned that, but getting to know people, and it was a lot more true, I think, during lockdown, where we would just ask people, how they were, even if we didn't know them very well. We'd talk about personal stuff at the beginning of the call, because we needed to, and that's definitely not something I would have done on a remote call pre-pandemic. And now it's part of the, I think a lot of people are a lot less, are a lot more comfortable with remote calling, video conferencing, and it's easier to be a lot more human. And that's pretty cool. I mean, at least I like that trend, and I hope we will continue on that trend. So with that, actually, we pretty much hit the 45 minutes, and so we have 15 minutes for questions. And I don't know if we'll have that many questions. If you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat box on the right-hand side or in the Q&A section. And we have got a question from Hamish. And so I'll read the question that is a bit long, and I don't know who would want to take it. But so Hamish is saying that he feels that there's still a strong reluctance from conveyancer to procure the most up-to-date technology. It's not helped, of course, by the sheer volume of work, and both HM Land Registry and the Law Society are working to encourage the take-up of the like of e-signatures and know your clients softwares. And the struggle is in spending time to save time. And so data held in the cloud can be accessed so readily from the home office. It really is having the office at home. Does the panel feel that 2021 will see more conveyancer taking on board so many time-saving technology solution? And so who wants to take that? I'm not sure I'm necessarily the best one here, but
I think there are a couple of issues there, and I'm not sure specifically from the point of view of conveyancers, but I think there are certainly some common issues. And I agree. I think it can be quite difficult trying to implement and increase adoption in technology when lawyers, they just don't have the time. You're working from one matter to the next, and trying to carve out that time to actually test a piece of technology, see if it works, let alone learn that technology. I mean, now so much tech is pretty intuitive. I think it's easier to onboard because you can pretty much just get in, just go. You can click your way around, and it's not so hard. But I think not having that time to be able to invest in that is certainly a blocker. It makes it very difficult. The other point you raised there is the cloud. I think that we're seeing a lot more firms move towards the cloud now. That is the way forward. It's the way we're all operating, and that will continue to go. We actually conducted a fully remote global rollout of iManage Work 10 in the cloud. And that was during the pandemic, which was not anticipated, but it was really needed, and it's really improved the way that we are collaborating and doing our work. You've got everybody on the same platform, easily accessible, secure, and it's an important development. But I certainly think it's going that way. Conveyancers specifically, I hope so. I hope everybody will continue to move in that direction. But yeah, thanks for your question.
And I guess probably just to add to that, I actually did conveyancing before I went in-house, and so I have some experience of it. But I think it's an area that really could benefit from some automation and some technology. If we think about experience of buying a house and going through that process, actually your buyers and sellers can be quite keen to find out what's going on. It's really important life milestone for somebody moving house. And I know that from having worked briefly in that conveyancing department as a trainee, you get a lot of calls from people saying, where's my deal up to? Where's stuff going on? What stage am I at? And it's much better if you can find a way for those customers to self-serve, find out themselves. A lot of people now are very comfortable working online, working with a portal. If you can find some kind of solution that works for your firm, that means that your clients can access their up-to-date information. You can put a note in there to say your searches are here. You don't have to write a letter and wait for it to arrive with your client, who might by that point have called you several times on the phone. So there is that investment in time in getting technology and rolling it out, and I don't underestimate that, because that's one of the biggest challenges we've faced as a team. But I think there is a really strong business case and actually a customer experience case for having some kind of case management tool that means that they can track and update their own matters and see where things are up to without having to constantly call you. And as you've said, the land registry, the law society, everybody's working towards getting that technology adoption. So I would say it's certainly worthwhile. There's a lot of benefits to doing it. As for finding the time, it is a huge challenge. That's the biggest challenge for us, is that I feel like I'm putting out fires all the time. I don't have the time to take the matches away from the person who's lighting fires. And actually, if I did that, I would save a lot of time and effort later on. So it's probably the best thing to do is look at what kind of solutions are out there for conveyancing firms. There's probably, as Eleanor said, some plug and play off the shelf solutions that might be able to do what you need it to do. So have a look and see if there's something there. What's that cost? How easy or difficult would it be to implement it? And then put forward that business case and have those conversations with the partners within your department to see if you can get their buy-in to invest in some technology.
And so we actually had a follow-up question on this one from Jill Thompson about, do you find that the law firm are reluctant to collaborate with clients via portal like the one you described, and how have you overcome reluctance, if so?
I think through the pandemic, there has really been a necessity. We've found less resistance to working on collaboration portals. I think you've really got to listen from both sides. There's, I think, a concern that they're not secure, but they are. You know, everything has to go through massively rigorous security checks. So I think that's one approach, is reassuring in terms of security. And I think that's certainly the value with collaboration portals. Certainly the status updates as well, as you referenced, Natasha. There's massive value in that. You know, being able to instantly see where you are, you know, without 10 emails. It's a huge positive.
I mean, actually, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Natalie.
I was going to say, we found that having that legal front door really helps with just managing work within our own team. So we have internal clients, they're similar sort of process, but actually having them come through a single platform, put all of their content in one place, and being able to communicate through that single tool does save time and effort. So I think there is a benefit to it. Go on, Christopher. I think you were going to say something on that point.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, because you know, we are talking a lot about the lawyers who just don't have time, and and don't have time to test technology, who might save them time. But when we think about time, there are, at least I feel like there is also just a question of time management and proper time management, and even technology can help waste a huge amount of time. Just looking at Team or Slack notifications and all those things, and actually looking at how much time you spent actually working is terrifying. And obviously those portals or anything that can actually prevent you to get those notifications, to get those emails from clients asking you what's the status, and automate that process is fantastic. But in some ways, sometimes, the first start is not even the technology. It's just looking at what are my team or my colleague actually spending time on, and what can I do to prevent them to not get distracted. And with that, we actually had a few more questions. So when an organization or law firm use various digital tools that are similar, how difficult is it to shortly streamline while keeping everyone happy? And there is more to that question, but I don't know if we can stick there. What?
I think it's about comparing different tools. There's a lot of online collaboration tools. You could use a variety of different providers, and I guess it's trying to figure out how do you keep people happy. So the first thing that we did when we were looking at purchasing technology was understanding the requirements, and we then ranked our requirements by what was most important to us. Things like ease of use are really critical in getting people to adopt technology. So having something that's intuitive was really important to us. But I would work with the teams that you're looking to provide a tool for and understand from them what their priorities are, and then rank them. And then what you can do is look at the different providers and see how they compare on those different things that you're looking for from it, so that you're really tailoring the solution you're going for actually what your team are looking for from their requirements list. So there are lots, and they all have different benefits, and it depends on which benefit is the most important to you, because I'm sure Eleanor has had that the same. When you're doing that beauty parade of different providers, there's shiny things for each of them, and it's just knowing which ones to do. So I think that was kind of the essence of the question around where to go and which to pick. And
actually, I think that's a good segue to the next question, which is a little bit like, what is the most useful tools or format you find, as a law firm or as an in-house lawyers, to learn about new technology and, to see if it tackles your pain points? And the question from Amy here is asking about webinars, video tutorials, demos, any other forms. I don't know. In some ways, maybe Eleanor or Natasha, if you have an example of a technology you have learned about that you didn't know pre-pandemic, how did you learn about them?
Yeah, so it's sort of, there's a pre-pandemic and there's a post-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, going to legal technology events or legal innovation events was the best thing, because there will be stalls from a variety of different providers that can give you a quick demo. You can take away some information to learn about it. There'll be kind of panel discussions and presentations that people can do that you can register for, which is a great way of doing it. As we start to come out of the pandemic, those will start to kick off again. I think there's already some coming through from various different organisations. So have a look out for those. Other than that, actually trying to talk to other lawyers in other firms. So if you've got friends and a network of people, asking them what they've tried and what they've worked on is quite useful, and then checking out the demos. I don't know, Eleanor, have you got any other tips for how to kind of find the best tech?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Is speaking to people who have used it is a great way of understanding what works for your particular pain point. I'd say demos they're a great way to understand what the tech is, what it does. It's dedicated time to ask questions of the vendor, and you can dive into particular points more specifically. I do miss not having the day set up where you could actually go hear a talk, chat to a vendor in person, but I mean, even so, it's not the most time efficient way. When you're continually looking at technology, sometimes you have to look at demos online. But I think demos are definitely the best way to do it. Ask questions.
So we have a few more minutes, and I don't think we have more questions. Do you have anything any of you want to ask?
We've had one pop through, I think, from Giles, who said that Eleanor's offering a really commercial and fresh perspective. So well done, Eleanor. But he said that he's found that lawyers are a little bit worried about clients seeing their unfinished work, and that may be starting to wane. As a client using external law firms, I don't care if I see your unfinished work. I'd rather find out where you're up to on staff and have that communication with you. But you don't have to share everything with your client if you're using a collaboration tool. Within our system, we have service desk team only, which is what I use to send internal notes to my team. So they'll send one to me saying, I'm thinking of doing this. Is this okay? What are your thoughts? And I can send my thoughts back. That's locked from our internal customers from seeing. So again, your collaboration tool, depending on what you pick, you don't always have to share the full unfinished version. Although I think clients are getting to a place where they recognize that their lawyers are human, and that's okay. We all work together to get to a finished product at the end of it. You don't have to be perfect first time. So I don't know, Ellen, do you agree that I think there's a kind of fear amongst lawyers of not being perfect?
Absolutely, no, I fully agree. And there's different functionality in different collaboration platforms. So obviously you wouldn't go ahead and share unfinished work via email, so you wouldn't do that on the collaboration platform. Either they're set up in a way that you can set permissions, you can have different parties look at different things. So I agree. It's all about gauging it and sharing what should be shared.
With that, I mean, do you have anything to add, any of you, to the webinar? Otherwise, we might close it. What do you think?
I think we've managed to hit the time pretty much perfectly. So I think that's probably brings us to the end of it. But thanks everybody. It's been a really pleasant discussion. So hopefully people have found it useful.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.